Before we begin, you must all be warned. Nothing here is vegetarian.
Today we're looking at one of my favourite TV shows of all time, Hannibal. Created by Bryan Fuller, it's a modern adaptation of Thomas Harris's novels about the cannibal serial killer Hannibal Lecter. This puts it in a long and often problematic tradition of serial killer dramas, but it twists the genre by focusing more on stylized horror and gothic romance, instead of procedural crime storytelling. Crucial to the story is Hannibal Lecter's theatrical personality. In the novels, he's portrayed as an eccentric European aristocrat with expert, snobbish tastes in food, wine, art, and music. Fashion isn't really emphasised in the film adaptations like Silence of the Lambs, but in Bryan Fuller's TV show, it's a central part of the visual storytelling. In my opinion, NBC's Hannibal features some of the best contemporary costumes on TV. Hi there, I'm Gavia Baker-Whitelaw and this is Behind the Seams, Decoding the World of Costume Design.
Bonsoir.
NBC's Hannibal introduces Hannibal Lecter in his prime, living as a wealthy psychiatrist in Baltimore. He hides in plain sight, protected by his role in high society, hosting dinner parties for rich friends and occasionally moonlighting as a consultant for the FBI. Meanwhile, in secret, he's murdering people and cooking their body parts into delicious feasts. Hannibal's own costumes are so gorgeous and theatrical that he already seems to live in a fantasy world. While other men dress in plain, muted colours, he wears a series of iridescent ties and patterned three-piece suits. This overlaps with his home decor, which is wildly ostentatious. These choices highlight a core tenet of the show. It's more interested in beauty and visceral emotion than it is about moral judgment. Most crime dramas are about justice and morality, with cops and investigators tracking down the bad guys. Sometimes the heroes make unethical choices in their pursuit of justice, but that's just another type of story about morality. NBC's Hannibal comes at the genre from a different angle. We sympathise with the protagonist Will Graham because he's Hannibal's primary victim, but we also kind of want Hannibal to evade capture because he's so compelling to watch. And eventually, we become more invested in Will and Hannibal coming together as equals. From the very beginning, we're invited to see things from Hannibal's perspective. His reasons for killing people are absurd and self-serving, but that doesn't really matter. We're not asked to agree with his reasoning, we're asked to agree with his taste. When Hannibal cooks food, it looks delicious. His house is beautiful, his clothes are beautiful, his life is beautiful. The soundtrack is full of classical music that caters to Hannibal's taste. And at one point we get a direct illustration of his appreciation. A scene where the camera follows a piece of music from a singer's throat into Hannibal's ear, provoking a rare expression of true emotion. The show trains us to enjoy and understand Hannibal's tastes, and when someone shows up with bad taste, we learn to recognise them as the enemy.
What was your penance?
I got 500 hours of community service. I worked at the dog pound, and I received some court-ordered therapy.
In previous adaptations, Hannibal Lecter ranged from darkly seductive to hypnotically creepy. But Bryan Fuller was the first creator to make Hannibal straightforwardly attractive. Obviously, Mads Mikkelsen is handsome and well-dressed, but in terms of personality, his version of Hannibal is also like the anti-hero of a romantic vampire novel.
May I come in?
A suave, old-world gentleman with an obsessive attitude combined with exquisite taste. His costumes are simultaneously a disguise and a form of self-expression. He really does love all this theatricality, and he's a snob who enjoys the finer things in life. But he's arguably play-acting for the Americans around him, performing a stereotype of a charming European nobleman. His own psychiatrist, Bedelia du Maurier, describes his public persona as a person suit. However, the show's clever costume design isn't limited to its title character. While Hannibal is often the most noticeable person on screen, the show is full of thoughtful costuming for every character. Hannibal features a more ambitious colour palette than we're used to seeing on a network TV crime drama. coupled with evocative lighting choices. This genre usually opts for a realistic, stripped-down aesthetic, partly to create a familiar tone, and partly for practical reasons. It takes a lot of skill to tie together the complicated visual elements we see in Hannibal, where characters wearing different patterns and colour schemes must seamlessly fit into an elaborate set. Black and white are used sparingly, which is why a character like Bella Crawford stands out. She's a woman who finds out she has terminal cancer. In a scene with her husband, who doesn't know the truth, she dresses like a Greek goddess in a stark white gown. But when she discusses her illness with Hannibal, she wears a dress that's half white, half black, symbolising her place in the crossroads between life and death. Then in her final scene in this episode, when she's accepted her mortality, she wears a subdued black outfit. It's this kind of detail that makes the show truly great. Plenty of modern TV dramas are stylish, but Hannibal consistently combines style with substance. Our main protagonist is the criminal profiler Will Graham, who is intended to be Hannibal's polar opposite. Like Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs, Will is emotionally vulnerable, isolated, and provides a lower-class American counterpoint to Hannibal's elitism. Will grew up poor and prefers a rural lifestyle. His hobbies are fixing boat motors and taking care of stray dogs. He opts for rugged, outdoorsy clothes and barely manages to wear a matching suit to work at the FBI headquarters. Usually, these traits would be used as shorthand for a macho kind of character, potentially with conservative undertones. But that isn't the case here. Will Graham's role is all about vulnerability and fragility. Narratively speaking, he shares a lot in common with the female protagonists of psychological horror films. Emotionally unstable heroines who are manipulated by powerful men and gaslit into ignoring their own survival instincts.
Did you just smell me?
Difficult to avoid.
Often pictured in tough canvas jackets and flannel shirts, Will Graham dresses like an archetypal image of American masculinity. But in the context of Hannibal, this costume actually serves to make Will look soft and small compared to Hannibal Lecter's angular, tailored suits, which emphasise Mads Mikkelsen's broad shoulders and confident posture. But as the show progresses, Will's style evolves. As Will learns to understand Hannibal's dark side and meet him on equal footing, he begins to dress more smartly, subtly catering to Hannibal's tastes, while displaying more outward confidence.
I came back to stop the dragon. He stopped.
Meanwhile, when Hannibal is pushed to extremes, his careful fashion sense is stripped away, either by animalistic bloodstains or by someone literally stripping him naked. In the third and final season, we see the version of Hannibal Lecter we knew from the movies, a notorious serial killer locked away in a mental institution, wearing a jumpsuit and a mask. His person suit is gone. Hannibal's costume designer, Christopher Hargadon, has a lot of fun with the show's supporting cast. Some characters, like the journalist Freddie Lowndes, emphasise the show's fantastical side. At one point, she wears an outfit that looks almost like marbled meat. Other characters look more conventional, representing the show's roots as a network TV procedural. Lawrence Fishburne plays Jack Crawford, the boss of an FBI department that hunts for serial killers. He and his forensic team dress like the stars of a conventional crime drama, wearing grey suits, leather jackets, and neutral coats. They exist in a sensible world of forensic science and law enforcement, or at least they think they do. In reality, the FBI is constantly several steps behind Hannibal and woefully unprepared for the gothic melodrama of his methods. The contrast between the FBI team and their opponents often seems outright absurd. Alongside Hannibal's cannibal puns and bizarre home decor,
You promised to deliver your wife to my dinner table.
the show features symbolic hallucinations and serial killers who murder people with honey or create sculptures out of human remains. Meanwhile, the investigators still look and act like the cast of Law and Order. Seasons 2 and 3 shift more of the focus onto new antagonists for Will and Hannibal, primarily the sadistic business tycoon Mason Verger. Like Hannibal, he's rich and fond of luxury. Unlike Hannibal, he's rude and disgusting, victimizing children and sexually harassing his own sister. He exists in the same economic sphere as Hannibal, a rich white man who easily gets away with murder. But he seems like a childish bully by comparison, play acting a twisted version of Hannibal's suave confidence, while wearing a sleazier style of luxurious costumes. His sister Margot is similarly stylish, wearing tailored outfits and chic horse riding gear. Once again, we see the divide between people who live in Hannibal's world and people who live normal lives. It's partly to do with class and partly to do with horror. In earlier seasons, Will's friend and co-worker Alana Bloom is a grounding influence, wearing delicate wrap dresses and normal business attire. She works for the FBI. But learning the truth about Hannibal Lecter is a transformative experience. In season 3, she starts wearing eye-catching suits and makeup, tying into her alliance with Mason Verger, her romantic relationship with Margot Verger, and her intentional choice to abandon traditional law enforcement and embrace Hannibal's operatic world. Along with all this theatricality, the show features some subtle costuming details as well. For instance, during the very first episode, we see hints of how Hannibal transforms his own appearance. We see him with a clingy patient, Franklin, who clearly idolises Hannibal's poise and aesthetic tastes. Dressed in a sweater and jacket, Franklin looks like an academic. So when Jack Crawford visits Hannibal's office for the first time...
Dr. Lecter. I'm a special
I hate to
agent.
be discourteous, but this is a private exit for my patients.
Oh, Dr. Lecter. Sorry.
He assumes Franklin is the psychiatrist, while Hannibal, dressed in a gleaming three-piece suit, is a patient. When Hannibal visits the FBI in the next scene, he's dressed very differently. He wears a beige suit and sweater, essentially cosplaying as Franklin. He's changed his appearance to cater to the FBI's expectations, looking more approachable for his first meeting with Will Graham. This overlap between disguise and performance ties into the show's queer subtext. At heart, the relationship between Will and Hannibal is a gothic romance. It's a more sophisticated version of the narrative we see in Twilight, where Bella Swan starts off as the naive target of a powerful stalker, but eventually chooses to join his community of vampires, achieving equal status as his lover.
They're like my own personal brand of heroin.
Both Will and Hannibal are portrayed as outsiders from the start. And Will's journey is all about abandoning the conventional path to grow closer to Hannibal. Likewise, Alana Bloom embraces Hannibal's world at the same time as she changes her aesthetic and falls in love with a woman. In most cases, this kind of subtext would come across as homophobic, potentially tying into old stereotypes about predatory queer people. But in the hands of a gay showrunner who invites us to root for Will and Hannibal as the true protagonists, it works. That's also why, on a structural level, NBC's Hannibal is more about romance than fighting crime. Plenty of crime dramas feature a cat and mouse game where an investigator gets drawn into the twisted world of his target. But Hannibal operates on a different kind of morality, explored in a setting that bears no resemblance to the real world. Costumes and production design play a major role in this suspension of disbelief, repeatedly reminding us that we're not watching a typical crime thriller. And throughout the series, Hannibal himself seems almost superhuman. No wonder the FBI agents, in their conventional clothes with their conventional methods, are powerless to stop him. Thanks for watching Behind the Seams. If you're a Hannibal fan like me, I'm sure you have a favourite costume from the show. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one!